A wise man once said, "Those who can't remember the past are condemned to repeat it." So, what can we learn from Nashville's first two games against the LA Kings ahead of puck drop tonight? We're going to talk about that today on the Locked On Predators podcast.
Your Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast, and thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast. We're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off this game day episode with a special shout out to our Locked On Pred heads. Those are our everyday listeners who tune in to talk Nashville Predators hockey with us each and every day. We appreciate your support, and we love that we get to spend a little bit of your day with you. I'm Ann Kimmel. I am a writer at the Hockey News. I am often joined by my partner in crime, Nick Morgan, but Nick is taking a little break right now. At the beginning of the episode, I quoted the old saying, "Those who don't remember the past are condemned to repeat it." And this is a quote that I had to write on the cover of my 10th grade history book. Can't even remember what my history teacher's name was, but I remember seeing that quote on the book cover, which we made back in the day, my friends, out of paper grocery bags. If any of our listeners remember how to make a book cover out of a paper grocery bag, those were the good old days. That quote has always stuck with me, and I think that it is true in life. And my friends, I think it's true in hockey. So today we're going to garner a couple of lessons as we look back at the Nashville Predators' first two games against the LA Kings. Let's see what we can learn from those games and what needs to happen with this Predators team ahead of puck drop tonight. This is, of course, a big game as the Preds take on the LA Kings. The Kings are 28-16-10. The Predators 29-25-2. These are two teams that have each had ups and downs in their season. The Kings made a major adjustment with a coaching change right at the All-Star break, but they've definitely had periods where they were very, very good. And then they had periods where they just could not kind of get things together. So tonight's going to be an interesting matchup under a new head coach, Jim Hiller, interim head coach, I should say. And of course, the wild card spot is very, very tight. The Kings are in the top wild card spot. They have 66 points. The Predators and the St. Louis Blues, which again, I'm like, where did the Blues come from? But here they are. The Preds and Blues are tied with 60 points tonight. The Blues will face off against the Islanders. Minnesota right behind with 58 points. They lost on Tuesday to the Winnipeg Jets. Tomorrow night, they play the Edmonton Oilers. So a little bit of a tough stretch right there for the Minnesota Wild. And the Kraken just hanging around there with 57 points. They play the Canucks tonight. So we're at a point, if the Nashville Predators want to make an appearance in the playoffs, every single game counts. And this one against the LA Kings, this is going to be a huge one. These two teams have faced off twice already this season. They split those last two games. So we're going to take a look back at what happened in those games and what we can learn from what we've already seen ahead of tonight's game. So let's jump in and do that. Preds and Kings faced off for the first time January 18th. This was a game that Nashville won 2-1. Both of these games were not necessarily high scoring affairs, which is something to keep in mind as we look at the game tonight. The January 18th game was a Saros versus David Rittich game. Interestingly enough, we may see that same thing tonight. David Rittich has faced, the Predators have faced David Rittich in their first two games. I suspect they'll see him in net tonight. Cam Talbot played the last two games, but Rittich has been something else against the Nashville Predators, which is a little bit hurtful, David Rittich, because we loved you when you were here, but here we are. January 18th, David Rittich was very, very good in net. All of the scoring came in the second period for these two teams. Ryan O'Reilly scored a power play goal. We're going to talk about why that's important coming up in a little bit. Drew Doughty also scored a power play goal after Ryan Patrick McDonough cleared a puck. He kind of jumped and cleared a puck from behind UC Saros to prevent a goal. The net came off its moorings. He got a delay of game penalty. Drew Doughty came in and scored a power play goal anyway. But the Predators got the lead and got the win as Gus Nyquist cleaned up a juicy rebound in that second period to make it 2-1. Neither team could get the advantage in the third period, and the Preds walked away with a 2-1 win. January 31st. The LA Kings came to Bridgestone Arena. This was the last game before the All-Star break. This was a game where the Nashville Predators really wanted to get a win. It's a game going into the break. They had lost the game before. They really wanted to get some good momentum going into the break. Another Saros-Riddick game. And after the game where the Predators lost 4-2, this is what Andrew Brunette had to say. He said, "In each goal, we fell asleep in a few different areas. I thought besides those few little details that we missed out on, I thought we did all the things that make us a good team, and unfortunately, we didn't finish." Some interesting stats from that January 31st game. The Predators outshot the LA Kings in that game 42-24. That includes 18-3 shots on goal in the third period, with Nashville outshooting the Kings. In that game, the LA Kings got off to the early 2-0 lead. One of those goals was Alex Turcotte's first NHL goal against UC Saros. Well, in the NHL, happened to be against UC Saros. Tyson Barrie answered back immediately after that second goal, but the goal was called off for goaltender interference. That nebulous call, none of us really understand. FIlip Forsberg cleaned up a rebound net front to get the Predators on the board officially. The Kings won a puck battle behind the net. Quinton Byfield one-hand passed the puck to Trevor Lewis, who was all alone sitting there in the slot. Phil Tomasino created an offensive zone turnover, and he ended up scoring late in the third period to make it a one-goal game. But Kevin Fiala, another former Predator, had an empty net goal to make the final score 4-2. The Predators lost the game before the All-Star break. Another game at home at Bridgestone Arena. So that's how that game ended up. Interestingly, after the win, the Kings fired head coach Todd McClellan 2 days later, named their assistant coach Jim Hiller the interim head coach. It was kind of surprising. We knew that McClellan was a little bit on the hot seat before that game, but really thought that probably he had bought himself a little bit more time with the win over the Predators. That did not happen. Since Jim Hiller has come on as the interim head coach, the Kings, they're 5-1. So the Predators have their work cut out for them tonight. We are going to talk about what do we take away from those first two games? What did we learn? And what do we need to apply tonight as the Predators take the ice? We're going to talk about that coming up here in just a minute. But first, want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Ibotta. Spring break is around the corner, which means you are probably going shopping, but don't shop for your big trip and get nothing in return. Make sure you're getting cash back every time you shop with Ibotta. Ibotta is a free app that gives you the most cash back every time you shop on hundreds of items, from grocery to beauty supplies to toys. So you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. Other apps give you points that end up not amounting to much. With Ibotta, just add your offers in the app, upload your receipt, and you get real cash that you can cash out to your bank account, to PayPal, or for gift cards. Join the over 50 million users and earn cash back every time you shop from over 2,700 brands and retailers, including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONNHL when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store, download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back, and use our code LOCKEDONNHL. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store, and use code LOCKEDONNHL. So the Nashville Predators are on their Western road trip. They're going to take on the LA Kings tonight, which means got to get your nap in early, friends. It is a 9:30 Central Time puck drop. Yeah, it's going to be a late night. I will be up watching the game. So if you end up needing to go to sleep, of course, you can check out the recap here on Locked On Predators tomorrow. We're going to talk about what went down on the ice, including, of course, one word to describe the game. The Predators also have a weekend back-to-back coming up. We're going to talk about those two games tomorrow as well. Tonight, though, Nashville Predators have got to handle business against the LA Kings. So we've talked about the first two games these two teams have played. What can we learn from these two games so that the Predators are not condemned to repeat the past? Well, I'm okay if they repeat the past where they won the game, but let's not repeat the loss. So what are our takeaways? Number one thing you have got to know ahead of tonight's game, tonight is going to be a very physical game. A big part of the LA Kings identity that Jim Hiller is really emphasizing with the team is checking. It is all about that forechecking. It's all about getting puck possession. When you look back at these first two games between Nashville and the LA Kings, they were physical games. Nashville had 52 hits. The LA Kings had 50 hits. Interestingly enough, the Nashville Predators have some of the top players in the league in hits. Of course, Jeremy Lauzon leads the league by a gazillion hits, but Cole Smith ranks 5th in the league in hits, and Yakov Trenin is 13th. That is not to say that the LA Kings don't have some very physical players as well tonight that are going to be going after the puck and hitting pretty hard. Andreas Englund, Carl Gunstrom, and Matt Roy. So they also have some very physical players. When you look at a game like tonight, I want you to remember that this is why the Predators re-signed Cole Smith and Michael McCarron. I understand that they are not the flash players. I understand that when you think about a reset, you are thinking about players like Luke Evangelista, Joakim Kemal. You're looking ahead to these top 6 offensively minded, amazing playmakers. But this game tonight, this is why you re-sign Michael McCarron and Cole Smith, because what they do can change tonight's game. So keep your eye on Smith and McCarron, because while they may not end up on the score sheet in this game tonight, they could really be difference makers when it comes to checking and puck possession. Another thing that absolutely has to happen tonight when it comes to the Predators against the Kings, the Predators have got to own that net front space. If you look back at these two games that the Predators and Kings played, most of the goals that were scored by Nashville were what people would call maybe garbage goals. David Riddick has been fantastic against the Nashville Predators. I don't know if it's a part of a revenge tour or what, but he has been stopping shots from the circle. He's seeing shots from the point. You know, he is making cross-ice saves against the Nashville Predators. Where the Predators have been able to cash in has been with those garbage goals, those cleaning up loose pucks in front of the net. Predators have had 4 goals against the Kings. The only one that you could maybe call pretty was Phil Tomasino's late goal in the January 31st loss. He got a pass from Roman Josi in the slot. The other goals were net front deflections. They were rebound cleanups. They were front of the net flurry, getting something past Riddick. Friends, there are no style points in hockey. Tonight is not going to probably be a game where somebody is going to have a shot that's going to knock your socks off. This is going to be a game that's probably going to be won or lost based on the real estate in front of the net. Look back at the win Tuesday against the Vegas Golden Knights. 2 of the Predators' goals, those were helped by net front traffic. You had Tommy Novak's goal, which you got a screen from Michael McCarron. And if you're going to screen somebody, you want Michael McCarron. All like 6'5" of Michael McCarron to be the guy in front of the goaltender. Cole Smith deflected in McCarron's shot as well. So the Predators need to continue with that net front presence. Also, defensively, you got to keep that space clear for UC Saros. So the Predators are going to have their work cut out for them defensively, keeping that real estate clear for Saros. Net front space going to be huge tonight. Finally, and this I think is going to be the most challenging one, Nashville's power play has to be good. And when I say good, I mean it has to be really, really good. We talked about this on yesterday's show. The Nashville Predators power play still not where the team needs it to be. It got a lot of extra attention from Andrew Brunette over the All-Star break. He spent a lot of time reviewing some film, making some adjustments. He also made some personnel changes to the two units for the power play. Nashville scored on 4 of their 18 chances since the break, so a little bit of an improvement, but it's going to be an extra challenge tonight against the LA Kings. The Predators are going to have to execute some very quick passes, good movement. They are going to have to win the faceoffs because the Kings right now have the best penalty kill in the entire league. Preds have gone 1 for 7 against the Kings in their previous game. So we know that at least one time, we know it can be done. Again, Kings number 1 penalty kill in the league, 86.7%, just ahead of the Philadelphia Flyers. They've killed off 15 of 18 penalties since the break and the coaching change. They're also tied for 3rd in the league in shorthanded goals. So this is something the Predators need to be very aware of. You have got to make really smart passes, especially at the point if you are on the power play, because they will hurt you if they can get that puck. So tonight would be a really great time for Ryan O'Reilly, FIlip Forsberg, Cody Glass to get hot on the man advantage. And again, doesn't have to be a pretty power play goal. This is one of those times where the power play may need to be a net front flurry and you get something past Riddick or Cam Talbot. I suspect we will see Riddick. For me, when it comes down to who's the player who's going to be a difference maker for the Nashville Predators, I know this may seem obvious, but I am 100% saying this needs to be a FIlip Forsberg kind of night. This is one of the games where you need your best players to play their best hockey, and Forsberg is the guy. FIlip Forsberg has been very good against the LA Kings in these previous 2 games. We can learn that from the past. In individual expected goals, he has been top of the roster in those 2 games for the Nashville Predators. So those are, it's a statistic based on how likely was he to score based on the quality of shot, the shot location, number of shots taken, that kind of thing. They factor that all in, and it gives you an idea of who was generating the best chances. That was FIlip Forsberg in these previous 2 games against the LA Kings. And look, like I said, let's not be picky. If FIlip Forsberg wants to score on the power play, awesome. If FIlip Forsberg can score at 5-on-5 with O'Reilly and Nyquist, even better, because we haven't seen a lot of that. But you need FIlip Forsberg's speed. You need his puck handling. Most of all, the Predators need Forsberg's finish tonight. Coming up, there is an LA Kings player that I think you must keep your eye on tonight who could be a difference maker, and it might surprise you who it is. We're going to talk about that player here in just a moment. First, want to let you know today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. We're all driven for the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences so that the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now. Again, Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. So tomorrow we're going to wrap up our Kings talk for the season, for the regular season, with our game recap. We're also going to be joined by Locked On Sharks host JD Young ahead of Nashville's trip to San Jose on Saturday. JD's going to give us a closer look at what's been happening with those San Jose Sharks, and we're also going to check in with a couple of former Predators. Tonight, though, Preds, LA Kings. Talked about FIlip Forsberg is my player to watch for the Nashville Predators. My player to watch for the LA Kings is one young Mr. Quinton Byfield. Now, I hope by now you have seen his incredible goal that he scored Tuesday night against the Columbus Blue Jackets. I talked about it just briefly on yesterday's show. Absolutely has to be a top finalist for goal of the year. Just incredible. But that is not the first time Nashville fans have seen glimpses of the talent and the breadth and depth of this young man's game. We talked about, board battles are going to be really important tonight. We saw how good Byfield was in one of the games against the Predators where he won the board battle. This was the January 31st game, won a board battle behind Saros, and with one hand holding a stick, kind of tossed the puck into the slot where Lewis scored a goal. This is a young man who is very smart. He is very fast, and he is an incredible playmaker. There is also a lot of Quinton Byfield to love. He is 6'5", 225. Only 21 years old. He was a 2020 first-round pick. He went second overall. This season, he has played 52 games, 18 goals, 42 points. He has played 99 games before this season in the NHL, but all of the sudden now, things are clicking. And Byfield's somebody I started watching a little while ago because it was a name sort of thrown out, I don't think as a serious trade rumor, but as a comparable to, this is the type of player that Barry Trotz would want in return for UC Saros. He's going to want a young playmaker, somebody who is a dynamic playmaker, a game-changing player. I don't think that deal is ever going to materialize for a couple reasons. Number one, I think Cam Talbot and David Riddick are turning into a decent tandem for the LA Kings. They're kind of competing for the starting job, which is why I suspect we'll see Riddick tonight. But I also think there is no way that the LA Kings are going to part with Byfield. You would have to pry him out of their GM's cold dead hand, I suspect. If there was a deal, this would probably flip into one of those, hey, we want Quinton Byfield. We'll give you UC Saros and something else, because I think he is that important to the future of the LA Kings, which is why I wish he would come to the Nashville Predators. But hearing that several weeks ago really got me watching Quinton Byfield much more closely. And one of the things that I want to point out as maybe a word of encouragement for Nashville Predators fans when it comes to the trajectory of Byfield's career. I mentioned he had played 99 NHL games over a couple of seasons before he really landed this year with the LA Kings and really found his game and his confidence at the NHL level. Let that be an encouragement as we watch somebody like maybe Phil Tomasino, as we watch somebody who may come and go from Milwaukee to Nashville, because that's what happened with Byfield. He went back and forth between the Kings and the Ontario Reign. And when he was with the Reign, he played top minutes. He got way more experience. He developed more of his game. He would come up and he would play those first couple seasons, some games in LA, and then he would be sent back. So it was the same type of trajectory as we've seen with somebody like Phil Tomasino, as we may see with somebody like Joakim Kamel, as we may see with somebody like, Igor Afanasyev. He reminds me a little bit of Luke Evangelista minus like 5 inches and like 3 Big Macs a day, because Luke Evangelista is much, much smaller. But it's that same kind of interesting playmaking, but it's going to take time to develop it on the NHL level. And I think we have to remember it's okay to see maybe Tomasino go up and down a little bit. Byfield now coming back up after that up and down AHL minutes, back up to the NHL for a couple for some games, and then back and forth for some seasons. He now finds himself playing a lot of time on the top line. It just takes time. And his development really has been that up and down trajectory. So be encouraged that there still could be a really good path for a player like Phil Tomasino. So just hang in there and let's see what happens. But overall tonight, keep your eye on Quinton Byfield. This is a guy who knows how to make plays. He is very, very fast. Just definitely somebody to keep your eye on tonight. Speaking of Phil Tomasino, I know that's kind of a sore subject transition, so forgive me, but do want to throw out the Milwaukee Admirals are going for their 18th straight win. They're playing this morning at 11 a.m. Central Time puck drop against the Chicago Wolves. It's a school day game in Chicago, which if you've never watched a school day game, super fun. So we've talked about, Milwaukee Admirals and this big run that they're on. Why do the Admirals matter? Why does the success of this AHL team matter? Well, we just talked about Quinton Byfield and how important his AHL back and forth time was. Obviously, in a reset for the Nashville Predators, you do want to see what you have in the pipeline. You want to see these prospects playing well individually, and you also want to see them playing well as lines, as defensive combinations to see what you may have coming up together in a season or two. You also want playoff experience. Barry Trotz has talked about wanting the Predators to get a shot to get into the playoffs. And that is not because Barry Trotz thinks the Predators are going to light it up and have another 2017 Stanley Cup run. It's because these young players need that postseason experience. I talked with Andrew Brunette about this a couple of weeks ago. Why is it so important to get young players playoff experience? And he said, you are now facing top teams in the league. There are no easy games. You have to compete at the highest level of your season after playing 82 games. It takes more mentally, it takes more physically, and the younger players need to see and experience that. Last season, the Milwaukee Admirals made it all the way up to the Western Conference Finals. They were one win away from getting into the Calder Cup. That experience made players like Spencer Stastny, like Mark Del Gaizo, like Yaroslav Askarov better players because they had to play longer, they had to play better teams, they had to play higher pressure games down the stretch. That is why the Milwaukee Admirals season matters. So we're going to see how the Admirals do this morning. Again, 11 a.m. puck drop against the Chicago Wolves. We'll kind of talk through what happened tomorrow real quick on the podcast. And again, tonight, talk about wacky puck drop times. My friends, 9:30 Central Time puck drop. Get your nap in or get your coffee brewing late with the Predators and the LA Kings. Of course, we will be back here tomorrow. We're going to recap the game, talk about our one word to describe whatever we may see on the ice tonight. And again, we're going to chat with JD Young from Locked On Sharks ahead of this weekend's back-to-back. That is going to do it for today's Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you again for spending a little bit of your day with us. We will be back tomorrow to talk about Kings Predators. We'll see you then.